it is used. So this does not mean that we should keep a self-ruining, disgusting, irritating moun, silence. No. We should use this power of speech, but we got to have a very integrated personality. So this is the art he's giving it to us. He says, use this power in the right way, which is beneficial to the listener, which is truthful also, which is sweet also. So when we put all these restraints on it, when we pay attention to it, what we are speaking, that's a tap. Okay, so tap, it's like a very benevolent scheme for remaking and rediscovering ourselves. Speech that causes no distress. So the words which we speak, they should not bring any disturbance to others. They should neither be irritating nor obscene. The reaction of the listeners, we can see that on their faces. We should be sensitive enough to see what's really going on. Sometimes we think we are in a higher position, we can say whatever we want to. That is not a tap of the speech. Generally, people speak with their own eyes closed. They don't even see the effect of their speech on the other people. Or even if the eyes are open, they're blind towards it. So there's no tap involved. And then the next thing he said, Satyam Priyam Hitam. True, agreeable, and beneficial. Telling a lie, no matter how sweet sounding it is, that is not a tap. We all know when we tell a lie, there's a lot of energy is wasted, a lot of time is wasted. We can avoid all that. So control of speech certainly does not mean that we should go into a state of inert, a lifeless silence of the grave. But we got to remember that this energy which is being used, it should be profitable to others. This is a channel which we are using, and we are the owner of this channel. So in the name of truthfulness, sometimes we become disagreeable also. It's almost like some people will always disagree, no matter who is saying what. So Gita accepts only that speech as truthful, which is also agreeable. If a truth is disagreeable to others, the speaker, what are we supposed to do? We can always have a discreet silence. Discreet silence. So it's not sufficient that the words in the speech should be honest and agreeable, but they should also be beneficial. That's another criteria there, beneficial. Speech should not be wasted. That's what it means. It should be beneficial. Talk only when you want to express agreeable ideas of permanent values, which would be useful for the listeners. That's called austerity of the speech. So then we are watching what we are saying. We are speaking less also this way. He says, use that power in reciting the Vedic mantras. Regular study of the scriptures. Swadhyaya is a technical term used in our sacred literature. Swadhyaya. Sing this Bhagavad Gita loudly, or the Vedic mantras, or any other mantras which are dear to you. So the vital energy which you have saved from not wasting in others' way, in a daily life, reciting some mantras, reading some good book aloud is a policy of a tap of speech. That's why when we do the arati, what do? We are singing, thanking God loudly. It's not that God is not listening when we are just only reciting it in our mind. God is listening. But this is one way of using that speech outwardly also. You are creating an atmosphere. So these words spoken, they have effect in the space element also. So we are cleaning it with this kind of a practice. So doing the chanting, reflecting, meditating over the mantras in the Upanishads and other scriptures. So the first line in this verse, it's a beautiful verse actually, if you really dissect it properly. First line in this verse indicates the channels of economy possible in the daily expenditure of speech. That's what it is. See, speech which causes no excitement and is truthful, pleasant, and beneficial. So that means you got to speak less in order to pay attention to all these areas. Before you speak, you'll have to think about it. Am I causing a distress in somebody? Is it a lie? Is it beneficial for somebody? Am I speaking sweetly or not? So you are conserving some energy. And in the second line shows where you need to invest that energy. Okay. So in the second line, he says, Swadhyaya Abhyasanam. Study the scriptures, read it out loud, do the mantra recitation. Okay. So he says, this is the austerity of the speech. See how beautifully, logically, Lord Krishna has explained. Now let's look at the top of the mind. Manaha prasada somyatvam maunam atam vinigrah bhav samshuddhi iti etat tapamanasam uchyate. Mana prasada, serenity of mind. Somyatvam, good-heartedness. It's like a kind person, kind heart. Maunam, silence. Atam vinigrah, self-control. Bhav samshuddhi, purity of nature. Iti means thus, etat means this, tapaha, austerity, manasam, mental. Uchyate is called. Serenity of mind, good-heartedness, silence. This silence is a silence of the mind. Self-control, purity of nature. So these are the 5 qualifications. This is called mental austerity. Austerity of mind is higher than the austerity of body and speech. Higher means it's subtler. If we learn to master the mind, the body and speech automatically get mastered. But at the same time, the reverse is not necessarily true. If you remember earlier, we learned in chapter number 6, verse number 5. Lord Krishna said, the state of the mind determines the state of an individual's consciousness. That's why he said, elevate yourself through the power of your mind and not degrade yourself. Why? He said, for the mind can be a friend and also the enemy of the self. Manaiva manushyanam karnam bandh moksha. Okay, so cause of liberation and cause of bondage, man. So that's why it's so important to do the tapasya of the man. So these are the 5 noble values of life. He is giving it to us in this verse. So in their aggregate, effectively they produce the tap of the mind. And the very first one, he said, serenity of mind, mana prasada. But in order to have a serenity of the mind, we must have our relationship in this world properly. Because the relationship, the world or the worldly people, it's not only the people alone, but the things also, that's what causes excitement in our mind. So the relationship has to be better. So this quietness of the mind can be gained only when it is protected from both the inflow as well as the outflow. We have to watch for that. That's why all these pujas which we do, or the mantra jap which we do, or the seva we do, all of that should bring the calmness in our mind, serenity in our mind. We got to always watch for this mind. Sometimes in the name of puja, we create more frustration in our mind. My own Guruji used to say, stop that. He said, it's better to get up and do the dishes. Got to watch your mind. Sometimes the mind can be calmer while doing the seva. Watch this mind, mana prasadaha. Then somyatvam, kindness. It's like a warm feeling of affection for everybody. We don't have to tell anybody that we are kind towards them, but we get the benefit of it when we have a warm feeling towards others. It really rises in the heart of a true devotee who really has learned to live in this divine attitude towards all things and all beings around. Even a temporarily upset mind, a devotee will watch for that. I don't want this poison in my mind. Because at the physical level, if there's a poison in the food, when we eat food, we make sure it's clean. There's no fungus on it. There's nothing bad about that fruit. The same thing in our relationships also. We have to watch for that. We don't want to have any kind of a animosity towards anybody. Kindness. And how do we develop that? When we try to see, recognize the divinity in everybody. At the physical level, as a behaviors also, we all have flaws. But when we recognize there's a divinity in the other person, then kindness automatically rises up. And the third qualification he gave us, silence, mauन. This mauन really means an inner noiseless calmness. And inner calmness, where does it come from actually? When we start reducing the desires, calmness comes. Because desires are the corroding passions. There's like exhausting desires. They just keep on building in our mind. So that's why we got to cut it down, just like a tree outside. The gardener will do the pruning every year. The same way we got to prune down our desires. Can we live without it? Constantly keep an eye on that. Okay? The state of constant contemplation will give us this mon. And the fourth thing he mentioned in there, Atam Vinigraha, self-control. So the above three qualities, serenity of mind, constant kindness towards others, and unbroken calm silence within, these are all impossible unless we are to deliberately control our inner nature. So they all are intertwined. So the lower nature in us, almost like an animal nature in us, it doesn't let us do the control. So that's why it's called tapa. Tapa means you got to control it, but you are controlling it to attain the higher. So learning to veer the mind from the negative emotions and dwell it upon the positive sentiments is considered the tapa. Okay. Then he says bhav samshuddhi, honesty of motive. Self-control is not possible unless our motives are pure and serene. So motive really means we got to have our definite goal in life. Without planning our onward march towards the ideal, towards the ultimate purpose of life, we become a victim to these lower urges. So that's why the goal has to be there. So these three verses, this verse and two before, they are just telling us, hey, have your body in check, have your words in check, and have your mind also under your control. This is what a serious aspirant does. Because normally people think that their thoughts are very secret. Nobody really knows about it. Or there's no external consequences to it. But actually, we got to realize that thoughts makes our character. You all have heard this, that watch your thoughts, what happens? They become words, right? Watch your thoughts because they become words. Watch your words because they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. So it's all linked. Our inside is linked to the outside, and then outside further has the effect inside. So we got to start somewhere. So that's why Lord Krishna is so clear about all of this. That a life of austerity is needed at all these three levels to have a proper movement where we are going. So these three verses, they give us a clear picture of what true tapa is. Then I told you earlier that these tapasvis, they are of different temperament, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. So according to their governing temperaments, they act differently with different tempo and different emphasis, and that's how the result comes. So now remember all these three are sattvic. So sattvic at the body level, sattvic at the mind level, sattvic at the speech level. How do we make that sattvic? Let's look at verse number 17. Shraddhya parya taptam tapaha tat trividham nare afala akankshi bhi yukte sattvikam parichakshate. Shraddhya with faith, parya highest, taptam practiced, tapaha austerity. Tat means that, trividham threefold, narai by people. Afala akankshi, desiring no fruit. Yukte, steadfast. Satvikam, satvik. Parichakshate, they declare. This threefold austerity, so threefold means again at the body level, at the speaking level, and at the mental level. So this threefold austerity practiced by steadfast person. So steadfastness has to be there with the utmost faith, desiring no fruit. Okay. So steadfastness, utmost faith, Shraddha, Parya, highest faith, and desiring no fruit. So these are the three qualities for a tap to be sattvic kind. So in other words, must be performed in a selfless manner. Selfless, no selfishness in there. Without attachment to rewards. Faith in the value of the austerity should remember steadfastness in both the success and the failure, both. Because sometimes we are doing something and you may not become a success, still keeping a faith. That's a steadfastness. So, see, selflessness really means don't worry about the future. Because the result is always the fruit is in the future. Don't take your mind to the future. Do what you need to do right now. So sattvic people, they know that. They stay in harmony in nature. Because we all know the future is the resultant of the total past, modified by the present. That's what future is. So the continuity of the past modified by the present is the future. So they don't worry about the future. They do what needed to be done right now in the present. So that's why the sattvic, desiring no fruit, but at the same time practicing with great sincerity, all three kinds of tap, because they know that this is their duty to do. Okay. How do the Rajsik do the tap? Satkar man puja artham tapadambhen cha evyat kriyate tat hi proktam rajasam chalam adhruvam. Satkar man puja artham, with the object of gaining good reception, honor, and worship. Tapaha, austerity. Dambhen, with hypocrisy. Cha means and, ev means even, yat means which. Kriyate is practiced. Tat, that, ih here, proktam is said, rajasam, rajsik. Chalam, unstable, adhruvam, transitory. So this is a definition of a rajsikta at all three levels. The austerity which is practiced with the object of gaining respect, honor, and worship. And with hypocrisy is here said to be rajsik, which is unstable and transitory. So if you are doing some certain kind of a austerity and you think that people should worship you, today they may, tomorrow they may not. That's what unstable is. because it's dependent upon the other people, dependent upon the other situations. That's what unstable and transitory is. So because you are performing that austerity with a view to gaining respect, honor, show off, hypocrisy, not for the purpose of your own inner development. See, Sattvic person keeps that in mind, steadfastness towards the higher. Shraddha Parya. Over here, the whole motive is so that others know that I am performing the austerity. So that's why this is like getting a cheap respect, reverence, worship. It is like a basest deceits that a person can practice, show off. So mainly for their propaganda value. So that's why this kind of a tap, he said, damb, hypocrisy. So when a tap is performed with such a low motive, as of winning respectability in society, it really cannot gather much intensity, and it can definitely be painful in the end. Okay, so that's why this is a Rajasik tap. And let's end this class with the Tamsik tap, because if this Rajasik tap seems pretty bad to us, we are the students of Bhagavad Gita. We don't want to stay at the lower ladder. We want to rise up. So Rajasik we should avoid, but if the Tamsik is there, we should definitely run away from there. So let's look at what is a Tamsik tap. मूढ़ ग्राहेन आत्मनः यत पीड़या क्रियता तपे परस्य उत्सादन अर्थम व तत् तामसम उदाहृतम. Mood grahen, out of a foolish notion. Atmana, of the self. Yat means which, pidya, with the torture. Kriyate is practiced. Parasya, of another. Utsadna artham, for the purpose of destroying. Va means or, tat means that, tamsik, udahritam is declared. That austerity which is practiced out of a foolish notion. So person does not look at the consequences of that. With the self-torture for the purpose of destroying another. Okay, is declared to be tamsik. So you're hurting yourself also, but your motive is to destroy somebody else. So tap undertaken with a foolish notion. It's self-torture. Tap indulgent for the sake of destroying others. These are the lowest kind. So that means when we do the tap, we have taken up certain austerity. There should be a clear notion why we are undertaking the tap. And we should also know how to do it. Because when the Vedic notion of tap is misconstrued, the seeker will only torture himself. And the self-torture cannot bring any beauty in life. If we just twist our body, we disfigure ourselves, we are hurting the environment, that is not a tap. And when then these misconceived, wrongly practiced taps are undertaken by anyone, they think that this sorrow they bring on themselves, God will be pleased. That is not a tap. That's a tamsik tap. Tamsik tap. Okay. So today what we learned is austerity we must do. Austerity is part of a aspirant's lifestyle, austerity. But austerity we need to do at a sattvic level. And austerity falls at the body level also, at the spoken level also, words we speak, and at the thought level also. But it has to be sattvic. And sattvic austerity is where the steadfastness is there, the faith in the highest is there, and desiring no fruit. Not for the fruit you are doing it. The minute we think I'm going to do it for the fruit, it falls in the category of Rajasic. Okay, so this is what we learned today. So next week we'll see how Lord Krishna is telling us what is a sattvic charity and a Rajasic charity and a Tamasic charity. Because he says that these are the four things as human beings we do. First he talked about ahar, the food we eat. Then he talked about the worship, the yake. We all worship. There is we love something or somebody. That's a worship. Then today we learned the tap, austerity. So next week we'll learn the dan, the charity. Because we'll see that in the next chapter, he will tell us that these four, all human beings do. And by doing this, we can clean ourselves. By doing this clearly, what are we supposed to do? Okay. And then the second part or the last part of this chapter, he is giving us a very direct nirdesh. So like a guideline. So how to do this while you are doing it also. So he's not done with the instructions to us. So I'll just stop speaking now because I think it's already 11:25. Anybody has a question, we can spend some time on that. But before that, let me do the Shanti part also. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti
Shanti,
Shanti.
Shanti.
So any question before I ask Manny to play some bhajan or sing a bhajan? Yes.